where the dead don't rest and every tale drips with terror. Here, shadows whisper, footsteps echo through empty hallways, and something hungry waits just beyond the screen. Each week, we bring you horrifying stories of survival, suspense, and the things that crawl out of the dark when the world begins to rot. If you're brave enough to stay, you'll hear tales of the infected, the doomed, and the few who dare to fight back when the undead rise. But before the next scream begins, hit that like button if you enjoy chilling stories that keep your heart racing. Subscribe to join our growing legion of horror fans, and press the bell icon so you never miss a new nightmare. Share this story with your friends if you think they can handle it, and we want to hear from you. Leave a comment, tell us what you thought, what creeped you out, and how we can make the darkness even deeper next time. Your voice shapes the fear. This is the Zombie Story Zone, and once you enter, you may never escape. Are you ready? Let the story begin.
Thrill, come and let your courage show. Fight or flight, we'll unite as the horror unfolds in the Zombie Story Zone. Adventure never.
The sun shone brightly over the Atlantic Ocean as the Ocean Empress set sail from Cape Town, South Africa. It was a grand cruise ship with 10 decks, glass elevators, swimming pools, and endless food. The journey would last 30 days, sailing all the way to the Caribbean. Among the excited passengers was Amara, a 28-year-old marine biologist with soft brown eyes and thick, curly hair. She had boarded the cruise to escape her past and maybe to find herself again. In her suitcase, she carried an old wooden mask carved with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. It had belonged to her grandmother, a village priestess in Nigeria. "Keep it close," her grandmother had whispered before she died. "It protects and it warns." Also on board was Malik, tall, charming, and confident. A popular travel photographer, he had met Amara 2 years ago on a beach in Zanzibar. Their connection had been instant, but life pulled them apart. Now, by strange fate, they were on the same ship. Then there was Sefu, a quiet man from Tanzania who worked as a ship engineer. His hands were rough from years of labour, and his eyes held ancient sorrow. Unknown to most, Sefu had once made a pact with the sea spirits to save his village. But the sea always collects its debt. As the ship left the shore, the passengers danced and drank champagne. No one noticed the old woman in rags standing at the dock, pointing at the ship and muttering curses in Swahili. 3 hearts will break, she warned, though no one listened, and the dead will rise. The second day on the Ocean Empress was calm. The sea sparkled like crushed diamonds, and the breeze smelled of salt and freedom. Passengers lounged in deck chairs, sipped cocktails, and posed for photos. Amara walked alone on the top deck, her thoughts heavy. She hadn't expected to see Malik again, especially not here, in the middle of the ocean. He found her by the railing, watching the waves. "Still love the sea?" he asked gently. Amara turned. "Always," she replied, her voice guarded. "I didn't know you were on this cruise." "I didn't either. It was last minute. I needed a break." They stared at each other for a moment, memories flashing between them. Zanzibar, sand between toes, a kiss under moonlight, a goodbye that never had answers. Before Amara could speak again, an announcement echoed through the ship. "All guests, please join us tonight for the masquerade ball on Deck 7, formal wear required." That night, the ship transformed into a palace. Guests wore glittering gowns and black suits, and everyone wore masks. The music was sweet and haunting, drifting like smoke through the halls. Amara chose a golden dress and wore the old wooden mask from her grandmother. It didn't match her outfit, but something inside told her to keep it close. At the ball, Malik was impossible to miss in a dark red suit and a lion-shaped mask. He approached Amara, offering his hand. "Dance with me," he said. She hesitated, then nodded. As they danced, eyes watched from the shadows. Leaned against a pillar, a carved necklace around his neck. His mask was plain wood, with marks carved into it, symbols from old stories. His eyes never left Amara. He had seen the mask she wore. He had seen it once before, in a ritual that opened a doorway between the worlds of the living and the dead. Suddenly, a loud scream tore through the ballroom. A woman collapsed, blood dripping from her nose and eyes. Her skin turned grey before anyone could react. Then her mouth opened, and she let out a low guttural growl. She lunged at a waiter and bit into his arm. Panic exploded. People screamed and ran. The music cut off, security rushed in, but they were too slow. Within minutes, 3 more guests were infected. Their eyes went black, their mouths snapped like wild dogs. The virus was spreading, and it had started in the ballroom. Down in the lower deck, Sefu moved quickly. He opened a hidden compartment in the ship's wall and pulled out a scroll wrapped in seaweed cloth. On it were old drawings, half-human creatures with rotting flesh and wide jaws. He whispered to the spirits of the deep, his voice shaking. "It's happening," he said. "The sea is taking its price." Chaos flooded the Ocean Empress. Guests in fine suits and sparkling gowns trampled over each other to escape the infected. Screams echoed down the hallways, followed by snarls and the sickening sound of flesh tearing. Amara and Malik had barely escaped the ballroom. They now stood outside, breathing hard, their hands bloody from pushing open a jammed door. What was that? Amara gasped. Was she sick? On drugs? Malik shook his head. No, that wasn't human anymore. They turned as another woman came running toward them. Her face was pale, her dress soaked in blood. "They're turning!" she cried. "They're eating people!" Malik grabbed Amara's hand. "We need to find safety." They rushed down a stairwell to the lower decks where they found a crew-only hallway. The ship's alarms began to sound, a dull red light blinking on and off. Emergency lockdown was beginning. They stopped when they saw Sifu standing alone at the end of the hallway. His face was calm, but his eyes were full of fire. "You brought it," he said to Amara, voice low. "What are you talking about?" "The mask. The one you wear. It calls to the spirits. You don't even know what it is." Amara touched the wooden mask hanging at her neck. It felt warm, like it was pulsing. "My grandmother gave it to me," she said. "She said it would protect me." Sefu stepped forward. That mask belonged to the priestess of the Ikong-Nkarebe, the guardian of the space between the living and the dead. "It's not just a charm, Amara. It's a key." Malik looked between them. A key to what? Sefu looked toward the ceiling, where thumping footsteps and screams echoed above. To the other world. Hours passed. The infected spread quickly. By sunrise, half the ship was silent, bodies lying still or walking again as monsters. Amara, Malik, and Sefu found shelter in the abandoned spa on deck 4. Sefu lit candles and began drawing symbols on the floor with sea salt. "We have one chance," he said. "If we can seal the rift, the dead may rest." Amara crouched beside him. "You said this is my fault, that the mask called them. But I didn't do anything." Sefu's voice softened. "You didn't have to. The blood in your family, the power was passed down. The mask only needed to be near the ocean." Malik placed his hand on Amara's shoulder. "We'll get through this, together." But Amara's heart was pulled in two. Malik, the man she once loved, Sefu, the man who had answers, and a mysterious connection to her grandmother's past. And deep down, she felt the truth. She was changing too. Later that night, while Malik slept and Sefu meditated, Amara stood at the mirror in the spa. Her eyes looked different, darker. Her skin shimmered like scales in the moonlight. She heard voices in the water pipes, whispers, songs, and the mask, still hanging around her neck, began to crack down the middle. Ready for Chapter 4? The infection worsens, the ship becomes a floating tomb, and the love triangle starts to burn. By the 5th day at sea, the Ocean Empress was nearly silent. The laughter and music were gone. The pools had turned red. Most cabins were locked or soaked with blood. The ship, once a floating palace, now drifted like a graveyard on the sea. Only a few survivors remained, hiding in cold kitchens, laundry rooms, and engine rooms. The air reeked of sweat, salt, and something rotting. Amara, Malik, and Sefu took turns staying awake. The infected never slept. They roamed the halls at night, dragging their limbs, whispering in voices that didn't sound human. Some wandered aimlessly. Others moved with purpose, like they were searching for someone. And sometimes they laughed. That hollow, broken sound haunted Malik's dreams. In the spa, the group had made a small camp using towels, steam stones, and locked glass doors. But fear grew in the silence. Every time a pipe creaked or a door hissed, they flinched. "I think I saw my brother," Malik whispered one night, eyes distant. "He came on this trip with his girlfriend. I saw him outside the sauna. He had blood on his mouth, but he looked at me like he still knew me." Amara touched his arm. "Maybe something of them remains inside." Sefu shook his head. "No, what's inside them is not your brother anymore. It's something older, hungrier." Amara frowned. You keep talking like this isn't a virus. It's not, Sefu said. It's a spirit curse, a hunger from below the sea. In my village, they told stories of the Ndem, sea creatures who take human form. They feast on life, then go back to the ocean. The mask you carry, it opened a gate. She looked down at the mask. The crack down its middle had grown wider. Sometimes it hummed, like it was alive, like it was listening. Can we close the gate? She asked. Sefu nodded. Yes, but the price will be high. The heart between them. As the days passed, something else grew besides the fear. Tension. Amara felt torn between Malik and Sefu. The air between them buzzed with unspoken feelings. They never argued, but the silence between the two men said everything. Malik reminded her of her old life, free, joyful, full of dreams. He was warmth in the middle of horror. He still made her smile when the world was falling apart. Every time he looked at her, she felt like the girl she used to be. But Sefu was different. He didn't smile much. His strength wasn't in words, but in knowing things that couldn't be learned in books. He moved like someone who had been carrying secrets his whole life. Around him, Amara felt seen in a way that scared her, like he knew her before she even knew herself. They both loved her. That much was clear. But as the darkness thickened, so did the weight of her choice. One heart would be broken, one soul would be sacrificed. And deep down, she feared maybe it would be hers. The next day, they heard a voice through the old intercom system, cracking and fuzzy. "This is Captain Andil," it said. "I'm alive. If anyone hears this, come to the bridge. There's a plan to take back the ship." They didn't wait. They packed what little food they had left, crafted weapons from metal rods and broken furniture, and began the long climb up the emergency stairwell. Each step groaned beneath them, echoing like a warning. But as they reached Deck 9, they froze. There in the wide central corridor, once filled with tourists and poolside bars, was a nest, a chilling, perfect stillness. Hundreds of infected stood in long, silent rows. Their eyes were closed, their bodies covered in sea slime, blood and torn fabric. It looked like a religious gathering, like they were waiting for a sermon. Amara felt something cold clutch her chest. "They're not moving," Malik whispered. "Why aren't they moving?" "They're not sleeping," Sefu said. "They're listening." Then, without warning, every single infected slowly turned toward them, eyes opening in perfect sync, milky, unblinking. Their mouths moved as one. "Daughter of the deep, come home." Amara couldn't move. The mask at her neck burned hot. They were no longer chasing her. They were calling her. Captain Andili showed them a hidden staircase leading to the helm chamber, an old navigation room left untouched since the ship's earliest voyages. The air inside was cold and heavy, smelling of salt, oil and something older, like bones left too long beneath the sea. In the center of the room, a spiral was carved into the floor. It was surrounded by strange markings made of crushed coral, ash, and bone dust. As Amara stepped closer, her vision blurred. She could hear whispers beneath the floorboards. "This is where it must happen," Andile said, leaning against the wall, blood seeping through his shirt. The ship was built on cursed waters, waters that remember. The gate opened here, and here it must be closed. Sefu began placing candles, his movements careful, reverent. Amara stood over the spiral, her legs shaking. The mask pulsed like a second heartbeat against her chest. "I'm scared," she whispered. "You should be," Sefu said softly. "This ritual is not a prayer, it's a bargain." Malik stepped forward. "Then let me do it. Let me take her place." But the room darkened as a cold wind blew in and the sea whispered through the ship's metal. Only the blood may bind the breach. Amara had no choice now. She would have to become the key. Amara stepped into the spiral, the cold seeping into her bones. The candles flared, casting long shadows on the walls. A wind, unnatural and bitter, swept through the room, though no door was open. The moment her bare feet touched the bone dust center, the ship groaned like it knew what was coming. In her mind, a voice echoed, not like sound, but like a memory being replayed in her blood. "Who calls us?" Her lips trembled. "Amara, daughter of Ades, granddaughter of Uluaku." "What do you offer?" "My life," she whispered, "my spirit, my story." The spiral began to glow faintly. Symbols lit up beneath her, forming a circle of ancient script that only Sefu recognized. He gasped, bowing his head. She saw visions. Her ancestors in white robes dancing by firelight, women singing into waves, a long line of priestesses whose faces bore her own eyes. The weight of generations settled on her shoulders, but she stood tall. "I'm not afraid," she said, even if it was a lie. Amara stood from the spiral, her eyes still glowing with the light of the ancestors. Her skin shimmered faintly, marked with ethereal symbols, ancient language etched in light, not ink. The mask at her feet no longer pulsed. It was still, as if waiting for her final command. "I won't close the gate with death," she said firmly. "I'll close it with love." The others stared, stunned. "I've seen the truth," she continued. "This curse wasn't born from war or hunger. It came from heartbreak, from betrayal, from the pain buried deep in our blood, and it feeds on that pain still." She stepped forward and took Malik's hand. "You reminded me what joy feels like, even in the middle of chaos." Then she turned and took Sefu's. "And you reminded me of who I truly am." Tears welled in her eyes. "But if I choose one, the pain of the other will feed the darkness. So I choose both. I choose all. I give everything." Sefu's eyes widened. "You would sacrifice your heart?" "Yes," she whispered. "To stop this, I have to let it break." The ship began to tremble. A great wave slammed against the hull. The gate was listening now, and it was deciding. Malik cradled Amara in his arms, her body limp but warm. Her eyes fluttered open, no longer glowing but pale and distant, as if she stood between two worlds. "She's breathing," Malik said, voice trembling. "She's alive." Sefu knelt beside them, watching her closely. "No, she's changing!" Amara slowly sat up. Her movements were slower, deliberate. The symbols on her skin were fading, but her veins shimmered like silver rivers. "I sealed the gate," she said softly, "but the spirits needed a vessel, a prison." Sefu paled. "You trapped them inside you." She nodded. "I made a new gate," she whispered, "and I am its guardian." Malik's eyes widened. "No, we'll get help. There has to be a way to—" Amara touched his cheek. "You were my heart, Malik, but I belong to the sea now." She turned to Sefu. "And you were my truth. Carry the story, teach them how to remember." Then she walked to the railing, no fear in her steps. The sea called her name in hundreds of voices. "Amara." Without hesitation, she dove in. The ocean accepted her like an old friend. And the ship, once cursed, sailed again, silent but free.
Epilogue, years later.
On a calm morning, a new cruise ship passed the same waters. A little girl leaned over the railing and gasped. Below the surface, something swam beside the ship. A glowing woman with silver eyes and long, flowing hair. The girl whispered, "Mama, I saw a mermaid." Her mother smiled. "Then wave, sweetheart. Maybe she's watching over us." Far below, in the stillness of the deep, Amara opened her eyes. She smiled. She was not forgotten. She was the sea.